Shalom family. Let's take a moment and talk about the two big stories coming out of two big enemies that are part of the Gog-Magog alliance that's building against Israel right now and is already together, and what's happening in those countries. So the first one is in Turkey at the moment. It's chaos, as it would seem the writing is on the wall for Erdogan, who even in the midst of all of this is just constantly speaking out against Israel and calling Israel names. He's the playground bully that's trying to pin all the blame on the kid in the corner, which is Israel. Now suddenly, his little empire is crumbling around his feet, and he's moved again, which is normal for him, against his opposition right before elections and jailed him on trumped-up charges. Protests erupt in Istanbul as mayor faces terror allegations. Immoral and groundless. That's how Istanbul's arrested mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu describes the allegations directed against him. At the same time, new clashes are reported between police and demonstrators. Outside the court, over 1,000 supporters gathered to show their support. The demonstration began calmly, but when more and more demonstrators joined, the police used pepper spray. Images from the scene show the police using water cannons and tear gas against demonstrators who responded by firing fireworks. In his statement released via Istanbul City Hall, İmamoğlu says that those behind this legal process will be held accountable before both the divine and worldly courts. Saturday's protest follows 3 days of massive demonstrations with hundreds of thousands of participants that have shaken Turkey after İmamoğlu's arrest on Wednesday, despite authorities issuing a demonstration ban extended through the week. It was also announced the police would arrest anyone traveling to Istanbul, Ankara, or the port city of Izmir to assist or participate in the protests. There's even pictures surfacing now on Telegram and online showing the bodies lying in the street that have actually been pummeled with clubs and things from the military and the police as Erdogan cracks down overbearingly on all of his people that are against him. So interesting time for Erdogan, an interesting time to watch. Is the world going to say anything? Is the United Nations going to say anything? This is a NATO member. Is NATO going to say anything? Or does the Trojan horse get left alone because he's not Jewish and his country's not called Israel? The same way that the world, the United Nations, everyone else supports Syria, even though they're slaughtering Alawites and Christians. Because, I mean, who needs Alawites and Christians? It's the Jews we want to focus on. See how twisted the world's become. So, yeah, I'm glad things are heating up for Erdogan. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Then, major earthquake hits Iranian nuclear facility. Friday morning, 10:23 a.m. local time, a 5.0 earthquake shook Natanz city in the central Iranian province of Isfahan. The earthquake occurred at a depth of 10 kilometers. Director General of Crisis Management Department of Isfahan, Governor Officer Mansour Glass, said 6 aftershocks followed the earthquake. Now for me, you should know by now if you're following this channel, 6. Did he say 6? As in 6 days of labor, 7th day of rest, 6,000 years, 1,000 years of Christ's reign. We're at the end of the 6,000 years. 6 aftershocks? Interesting. The number of man? Interesting. Wow. The Isfahan Nuclear Technology Center is Iran's largest nuclear research complex and employs approximately 3,000 scientists. Rabbi Ayal Rees, founder and director of Tzfat Kabbalah Center, noted the timing was significant. In Hebrew, the word for beepers is almost exactly the same word for in Purim, according to Rabbi Rees. We are seeing the continuation of the holiday. On Purim, the Jews had to stand up and fight Amalek, seemingly without divine aid. But later, in Pesach, the Jews don't have to lift a finger. God wiped out the Egyptians without us lifting a finger. That is the way this war began. It began with Israel performing what looked like miracles with the beepers, but then we had to fight. But Syria fell without Israel having to fire a single shot. Iran is one of the most seismically active countries in the world, being crossed by several major faults that cover at least 90% of the country. The prophet Ezekiel described earthquakes as preceding the pre-Messiah multinational war of Gog and Magog, says the Jewish rabbi. Mountains shall be overthrown, cliffs shall topple, and every wall shall crumble to the ground. Ezekiel 38 verse 2. And so he connects that to what's happening now, and he says we're going to see more and more instances of God fighting for Israel and Israel having to do nothing. And he's correct, because ultimately when it comes to the Gog-Magog war, if you go read up on it and study a bit deeper, you'll see it's such an overwhelming attack. There's no way they can help or save themselves, and God himself intervenes in that situation. So yeah, interesting. It could also be that they're testing their nuclear weapons underground like most countries do, and that triggered the earthquake and the multiple aftershocks. I've got to put that out there. That's also a possibility. It could just be God messing with Iran to show his displeasure. But it's really interesting that two major players in this alliance are having major problems right now. And what do they have in common? They both hate Israel. They both stand against Israel. They both want Israel wiped out completely. But God. Shalom.